My sister cried. Family shares everything. But I had already shared for 2 years $7,000 a month, quietly, while they claimed I lived off them. My name is Eleanor, and in my Minnesota lakeside village, winters were long and everyone knew each other. As a child, my family seemed normal. My mum worked nights as a county hospital nurse, and my dad taught high school physics. We were neither wealthy nor poor. As an only child, I thought everyone loved me. Dad took me fishing every weekend, and Mom brushed my hair before work. We ate ice cream on the porch, listening to cicadas on summer nights. I considered that a warm family. It ended on a frigid January night when I turned 8. I woke to urgent pounding and flashing lights in the driveway. My aunt, Margaret, entered with a pale face and urged me to grab a coat and essentials. Mum was hospitalized, she said. After being born 2 months early, my sister needed special care. I was too young to understand, but that night changed everything. Rose, a tiny red living thing surrounded by tubes and machinery, lay still in an incubator. I couldn't approach her. We can't risk her getting sick, Mum said, watching the heart monitor. She gently pulled away as I touched her hand, as if I were a threat. Everything revolved around Rose after she came home. Sanitizer filled every room. Air purifiers ran 24/7, and a bleach smell that burned my throat made our house sterile. Mum took me to Grandma's when I coughed or sneezed. At first it felt good. Grandma made delicious apple pie and saved me books. But I slowly realized I wasn't welcome at home. They worried I might hurt Rose, their hope. I aced my first 3rd grade math test and brought it home, expecting Mum to pin it on the fridge as she always had. After glancing at the paper, she asked Dad if he had tissues for Rose, who looked stuffy. Dad nodded and said, "Good job," without a hug or smile, then turned away. I tried everything to get their attention, sketched pictures. Won first in the school science fair. Told Mom about my favorite book. Every attempt was dismissed. Rose has a fever. She's asleep. She needs rest, Eleanor. Please be quiet. My invisibility grew. I kept to myself since Rose was irritated by the peppermint oil in my room, so I was barred from the only place that felt mine. I studied art history, antiques, and the imaginary worlds behind old paintings. Rewriting history hurts more than ignoring it. Eleanor has always been strong and independent. Mum told neighbors when I entered the gifted program. She understands that Rose needs extra care. I never heard her say it to me. My family vanished without warning. I realized their expectations weren't for me. As my parents praised, hugged, and seemed proud of Rose, I decided I didn't need that. Eleanor takes care of herself, Mum would say when asked about me. Independence doesn't mean rejecting love. In 8th grade, I applied to work at Sugar Pine Bakery. Miss S. Hawthorne, the owner, was my first non-family supporter. She never asked why a 13-year-old wanted to sweep floors and sell pastries after school. "If you work hard, you deserve a place in the world," she said, touching my shoulder. I'll never forget that. Every day after school, I tied back my hair and went to the bakery to wipe tables, wash trays, and take orders. I did homework quietly at a small corner desk. As long as I didn't startle Rose with hand soap, no one asked where I was or what I was doing when I returned. Rose was special, except for buying her birthday cake. She never worked, cleaned, studied, or visited a bakery. The family sent flowers and a video camera to all Rose's events, from group presentations to church performances. For me, Mom just said, "That's good," while slicing fruit for vitamin C, deficient Rose. After my perfect SAT score my senior year, I applied to 12 colleges. No one knew. I wrote essays secretly during bakery breaks, and Miss S. Hawthorne proofread them. She taught me sincere writing. I handled recommendation letters, financial aid papers, and FAFSA myself. I walked silently, but confidently. My parents weren't expected to pay for college, so I applied for merit, need-based, and first-generation scholarships. Every application line was my quiet protest against being ignored. After working all summer, saving every tip in a piggy bank, I bought a bus ticket to a scholarship interview in another state. During my usual spring afternoon bakery counter cleanup, I received an email. Northwestern offered me a full scholarship. I stood, immersed in the buttery cookie fragrance, eyes burning, smiling uncontrollably. Miss S. Hawthorne hugged me like her grandchild. It was my first cry from someone being proud of me. That night, I showed Mom the acceptance letter. She looked at it, placed it on the table, and said, "Congrats." But don't tell Rose. She's stressed lately. I nodded, folded the paper, put it in my pocket, and went upstairs while Rose laughed about her new dance shoes from a boutique I'd never visited. Weeks later, after Rose's second-place win in a school art contest, the family celebrated. Dad even displayed her drawing in the living room with a plaque that read, "The family's talent." I looked at the pink cat on a rainbow, then at my research paper, praised by a college professor, now in my desk drawer. I knew I was the silent child despite my efforts. Even on ordinary days, Rose was special. I swore to become someone they couldn't ignore again. Since I had the key to escape, I loved art history and was tired of being told what to do, so I majored at Northwestern. When Grandma took me to her house, she let me browse boxes of vintage brooches, necklaces, and earrings. Art Deco, European dynasties, and antique jewelry lectures brought back memories. Swan hairpins with delicate lavender stones came to mind. I was breathless when light hit the jewel, but I wasn't sure if it was worth it. I spent hours admiring the window. Looking at an antique goes beyond interest. My only trustworthy instinct is this one. After graduating with honors, I interned unpaid at a small Chicago jewelry evaluation organization, mostly with local auction houses. My friends joined big media or finance companies while I wore white gloves, crouched over a magnifying glass, and chronicled every tiny scratch on rings no one cared about. I didn't realize those nameless fragments would change my life. A costume jewelry brooch worth a few $dozen was the first big shift. Something about picking it up stirred me. The modest design had superb craftsmanship, excellent enamel, cleanly etched edges, and a nearly worn flaw on the reverse. Researching that mark took all evening. A French artisan who made jewelry for aristocrats in the early 20th century, lost his factory during the war. The brooch was rare and authentic. My employers heard my findings in a brief meeting. I spoke with passion, not pride, using archival documents, design comparisons, and a university librarian friend who helped me access a museum database for original records. The brooch was re-evaluated at $12,000 at the Seattle Antique Showcase auction and sold for about $40. The company email introduced me. Eleanor has a sharp eye. I continued working as if nothing had happened while more misjudged pieces came to me. Cloisonne enamel necklaces were mistaken for copies, but this 19th century Russian one was authentic. Another of 30 platinum wedding rings for a Boston family's anniversary. More collections became my responsibility. My supervisor, Clara, invited me to lunch for the first time. "Eleanor, have you ever thought about going solo?" she asked, slicing a tart. I chuckled, thinking she was joking. She nodded. "You, the girl who's worked unpaid for 2 years and survives on instant noodles?" "Exactly. The hungriest people find the rarest meals." I remembered her words. I verified for pawn shops, family-owned antique stores, and small businesses that couldn't afford big firms. Though my charges were lower, every detail was checked meticulously. "Be careful. Never skip," I told myself. At night, I unlocked the closet in my shabby 4th-floor apartment and looked at the notepad Grandma gave me. The first page said, in messy handwriting, "It's not the rare item. It's the girl who sees it as treasure." I understood. If I was invisible at home, every object I touched defined me. I was determined never to be underestimated again, just as I never misjudged a hidden jewel. In the fall of my 27th year, I started a business. No one knew, nobody asked. My family thought I worked a temporary job to support Rose's long shifts. I rented a small office on the 3rd floor of an old Milwaukee building, above an Italian cafe and next to a closed dental practice. A file box propped up a wobbly wooden desk, a chair I salvaged from the trash, and a flea market lamp in the 300-square-foot space. The lamp clicked softly every time I turned it on, as if doubting my dream. Everything faded silently when I named the company Aurum and Iris Aurum for gold. Iris after the flower Mom planted in our yard before Rose was born. The start was tough. I helped a local antique merchant distinguish platinum from plated mix, and an elderly woman authenticate her Great Depression-era engagement ring. I methodically performed gemstone microscopy and historical provenance tracking for less than big firms. I earned respect. One referral doubled. A small regional museum, estate lawyers, and collectors sought help appraising an inherited jewelry set that had never been valued. My office grew. In my second year, near the Italian cafe, the glass-fronted ground floor had a sign. I hired my first employee, Maya, a recent geology graduate with sharp eyes and patience for tiny stones. She learned to study gemstone cutting under filament lamps, spot handcrafting with the naked eye, and, most importantly, trust intuition. Growth was faster than expected. By year 5, I had offices in Milwaukee, Minneapolis, and Denver. We validated million-dollar auctions, served clients from both coasts, and specialized in forgotten storage, safe, and attic collections. My net worth exceeded $12 million, with nearly $1 million in authentication contracts. I lived in a modest suburban house, drove a neutral-toned silver SUV, and used an old phone because I didn't need to show off. My relatives didn't understand. Eleanor, the rebellious daughter who declined a good office job, works with old things and misses dinner, they thought. Maybe they pictured me dusting antiques. I attended Sunday dinners, listening to Mom talk about Rose changing her major, for the 4th time this time to animal behavior psychology, possibly finding her passion. Dad advised me to work at the local high school for its great insurance. I watched Rose scroll through Instagram mid-conversation, showing off a new designer bag she claimed was on sale, though it was a limited edition, never discounted. I smiled softly. When asked what I was doing, no details were needed. My pearl necklace belonged to an Edwardian British noblewoman, and my ruby hairpin was a rare early 20th century design. No one noticed, assuming it was flea market trinkets. I didn't correct them. Rose joked over dinner. Ellie definitely has enough jewelry to open a shop. I grinned, sipped orange juice and said, who knows? I could have said I was behind some of the region's largest authentication cases, that my company had just signed a contract with the National Museum, that I was invited to write for a major gemology journal, or that Rose's bracelet was fake. But sometimes, silence is the only crown the overlooked can wear without permission. After my 5th year in business, I sent my parents money. After Rose switched to her 5th major interior design, her monthly spending jumped from $3,000 to $5,000 to $7,000. Interior design was the field I wanted but couldn't afford. Mom called one Saturday evening, her voice softer after thanks. Rose is really finding herself, you know, but tuition at Parsons isn't cheap, and your father's teacher salary can't cover it all. I nodded at my desk, reviewing documents for a $400,000 antique jewelry appraisal. Can you help? She asked after a pause. I said, how much per month? Rose hadn't graduated in 6 years. $7,000, but temporarily. Once Rose graduates, she'll help the whole family. I never asked why they hadn't urged her to apply for scholarships or part-time jobs. Instead, I opened a company account and set up a $7,000 monthly transfer for family support and tuition. Every time the money went out, I told myself, not because they deserve it, but because I can. Some can't. I tried not to hear Mom tell neighbors, Eleanor lives so frugally, she basically eats canned soup and rides the bus. Or see Rose post Cabo vacation photos with luxury luggage captioned, I deserve this, after a tough semester. At Sunday dinner, Rose half smirked while I carved a roast. Ever considered an MBA? It might help your antique shop work. Mom nodded quietly. She's right. All have master's degrees. Going back to school could improve your prospects. Sipping water, I thought about the design for the New York gallery I'd signed last week. I authenticated every piece for a $2,500,000 project. After a few beers at her boyfriend's birthday party, Rose told her friends, my sister, no idea why she's still chasing dusty old stuff. Pity, my parents still pay her rent. A former customer, one of her friends, told me what she said. I chuckled, not sad or angry, but empty. Emptiness at being at the summit and looking down to see your family still at the base of the mountain, unwilling to climb but needing a rope. Like the antiques I find in junk piles, silence can make anything interesting. Rose captioned an Instagram post, rewarding myself after a rough semester. Hard work pays off. I knew the car cost over $90,000, and no Parsons student could afford it without quiet funding. Mum called me happily that day. Did you see, honey? Rose is doing so well. She's handling everything on her own now. She's got the ability to succeed. I sat quietly, but I was restless. I wanted to know when people would see me, not their faded shadow. Thanksgiving wasn't planned that year. I intended a solo escape. Mom called, sounding more vulnerable than usual. I haven't been feeling well, Eleanor. No one's up to cooking this year. Everyone's looking forward to the holiday. You know how it is. I knew dinner would be forgotten, but my absence would be noticed. I said, I'll take care of it. You rest. I contacted a Chicago high-end catering firm used for my company's auctions. Private collector dinners featured custom-designed meals, works of art from planting to seasoning. My company's secondary card covered everything. No one knew. Nobody asked. Thanksgiving morning, I arrived early. The caterers came an hour later with portable ovens, silver trays, and a skilled tablescape designer. Rose whispered to Mum, "Isn't she overdoing it? Looks like she's trying to impress someone." I smiled briefly. Impress? I had no one to impress. I wanted one real meal, not dry. No mushy potatoes, no salty gravy that needed water between bites. Dinner arrived quickly. Nearly 20 people, grandparents, aunts, uncles, distant cousins, Rose, and her new boyfriend, gasped over every dish. I smiled and poured wine instead of talking. Mid-meal, I secretly watched a Tokyo auction from my old apartment upstairs. A unique Meiji gemstone set was being bid on by my longtime client. I couldn't afford distractions. While Bluetooth connected with my assistant, I tracked bids using my laptop's authentication app. Then Rose entered without knocking. "Do you have an iPhone charger?" "My phone's dying," she asked, peering at the graph-filled laptop screen. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, her smile faint. "Mind if I borrow this? Let's show everyone how cool your little antique work is." Before I could stop her, she carried the laptop to the dining room. "Guys, look what Eleanor's doing on Thanksgiving," she exclaimed as I followed. She showed everyone the screen. No one spoke. Open tabs revealed a $12,600,000 bank account, a $400,000 authentication contract, and the latest internal quarterly report showing over $4 million in corporate earnings. Silence. A fork scraped a plate. Mom broke the quiet, shaking her head after a small laugh and a bite of turkey. "Come on. Eleanor's probably just helping someone with paperwork." "Right, sweetheart." I inhaled, adjusted my sleeves and stepped forward. "No, Mum. I'm the one signing that contract. I am the CEO of Aurum and Iris. My company operates 3 offices across 3 states, specializing in antique jewelry and estate asset authentication. Everything you're seeing is real." A spoon dropped. Aunt Margaret gasped. Dad leaned back, forehead sweaty. Rose gripped the table edge, her voice cracking. You have that kind of money and didn't say anything. Mum and Dad are in debt for me. I'm still in school." I faced Mom. "I've been sending $7,000 to you every month for over 2 years. You never wondered where it came from?" Her face paled. Dad turned red. Rose cried, trembling. "I have a right to know." "I'm your sister. Family's supposed to share." I looked at them all prophets who mocked and belittled me. I spoke calmly but firmly. Family doesn't mean carrying people who always look down on you. I left with the laptop closed. Someone shouted duty behind me, but I didn't turn. My heartbeat was all I heard, like an ancient gold watch ticking flawlessly despite dust and time. No one hugged me or said, "Eleanor, we're proud of you." No genuine smile. Mum's voice hit me after a long silence. "You've got millions of dollars, and you let your parents struggle. Did you even think about your sister?" Rose cried and shrieked before I could answer. "I deserve to know. I'm your sister. You kept it all a secret and just sat there watching us suffer. Suffering." I laughed. "You call flying business class, wearing a Cartier watch, and buying a BMW suffering?" Dad slammed the table. "That's enough. No matter what you do, you're still a daughter of this family. Families share. You should be ashamed for keeping this a secret." I examined the table. They didn't have familiar eyes. They looked at me like a broken safe. "I've sent $7,000 a month to you and Mum for 2 years. Every time you called, crying, saying you couldn't manage, I never asked why. I didn't set conditions. I just quietly sent the money. And this is how I'm repaid," Mum replied. "Then why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell us you were successful? Was it because you didn't want us to rely on you, or because you wanted to keep it all to yourself?" Clutching my glass, I spoke. "Because I got used to being ignored. Ever since Rose was born, I stopped being a priority. Every award I won, every exam I aced it, was forgotten because your sister needs to rest." I faced Mom. "Do you remember when I got a perfect SAT score, or when I got a full scholarship. And Dad, do you remember my graduation? No one came. Everyone was too busy watching Rose's preschool ballet recital. Mum's mouth moved, but no words came out, her hands shaking. And now, the moment you find out I did something none of you believed I could, your first reaction is anger because I didn't share it. That's not it, Rose said. I'm just shocked. I feel betrayed. You didn't trust me. Softly, I addressed my sister. You've never trusted me. You've always seen me as the shadow behind you. You mocked my work in front of your friends. Told them I lived off Mum and Dad when I'm the one who paid for every semester you studied, every vacation you bragged about online. Rose froze, eyes wide. She hadn't expected my clarity. Eleanor, I'm not fighting, but you can't hoard that kind of fortune and expect everyone to act like nothing's changed. Mom said shakily. The family needs help. You could start a fund for Rose. She wants to open her own interior design firm. You mean use my money to fund a dream that's never been followed through? I unlocked my purse, took out my phone, pressed a few keys and said, I just cancelled the automatic transfers. The room erupted. Eleanor, you can't do that, Mom shouted. Your father and I were counting on that. Rose hasn't even finished her degree. Then it's time to start figuring it out, I said. I've been on my own since I was 17. If I can do it, so can the rest of you. I stood, my chair scraping. No one stopped me. I turned and said, if the only reason anyone wants me in their life is money, I'm sorry, but I'm done buying love. I don't need it anymore. As rumors spread, I left. Someone mentioned a lawyer. Another said, she'll regret this. Closing the heavy wooden door brought only relief. I left the Thanksgiving feast unnoticed. It was the first time I didn't regret choosing myself. That night, my phone buzzed incessantly in my apartment, like someone was holding down the call button. Texts flooded the screen. Mum sent the first, Eleanor, you're making everything worse. We need to talk. Rose is falling apart. Can't you see she's lost all faith? Family is where you come back to, not what you walk away from. Dad was cooler. I don't know what kind of person you've become, but this is not how you treat family. Rose sent 37 messages. You're ruining everything. You'll regret this. I turned off the phone and placed it face down to calm the storm. The next day, aunts, distant relatives, and my dad's friend's wife, who once said, Eleanor is sweet, even if she's not exactly brilliant, spammed my corporate emails. I hired a lawyer, Julian, who handled SIG-IP estate matters. I relayed the messages, but he didn't respond emotionally. His nod was direct. You need a clean break, financially and legally. I'll draft cease and desist letters today. We formally told everyone to stop harassing, threatening, or asking for money. Julian, please say this clearly. Love shouldn't be priced, I said. A week later, Rose posted a long, cryptic note online. Not everyone with money has a heart. Photos showed me holding her as a baby, graduating high school, and smiling at her 17th birthday lunch. The posts were passionate indictments, aiming for sympathy. One commenter called me a soulless ATM. Another asked why an MBA candidate used 8-year-old images. I stayed silent, taking the 15-year-old pearl necklace Grandma Agnes gave me from my closet's wooden box. I wore it around my neck, a memory that had sustained me for years. Grandma Agnes was my only unblocked relative. When I called to tell her everything, she wasn't surprised. She sighed. You finally did what you should have done long ago. I stayed quiet. She spoke, slowly but firmly. Eleanor, family isn't the people who pull you back when you're trying to fly. You've lived in their shadow long enough. It's time you choose your own light. I invited her for a few days the next week. She brought bags and homemade butter biscuits. The woman who taught me to discern truth from fiction with instinct grinned, as if her whole life had been waiting for this moment. As we sorted through a gem collection I'd brought from Switzerland in the living room, I changed all my numbers. Personal addresses were removed from the company system. My receptionist was instructed to deny family claims without an appointment. I rented a guarded biometric headquarters. Julian called Monday morning while I drank coffee and reviewed an exhibit proposal. I smiled because silence was unbearable. It didn't matter if they hesitated. They didn't need to recognize me. I stopped asking for permission to be myself. Grandma observed, a true gem doesn't need to shout to prove its worth. It only needs to not be buried among the rocks. I was in the right place and couldn't go back. In early March, I moved into a mid-century cottage by Lake Mendota in Madison, unassuming, private, with AI-integrated surveillance cameras, a perimeter fence, and a jewelry vault installed in my new office. I hand-assembled a warm amber desk lamp, a soft leather chair, and a vintage wooden bookcase from a closing bookshop. The smell reminded me of afternoons reading Nancy Drew in Grandma's attic. For the first time, I lived without shrinking, no need to downplay my success to appease others. No more pitying sneers or sorry stares from Rose. No comments that my necklace looked like it was from Target. Sunday dinners ended. I filled every void by being myself. Everything strengthened the company, which surprised me. After Rose's cryptic social media post, previous clients contacted me. Some questioned. Others trusted me more because I'd kept it quiet for years. A famous fashion designer asked me to authenticate his vintage jewels for a New York exhibition. A major European organization requested I conserve an 18th century jewel. I hired 2 appraisers, opened a Denver office, and partnered with 3 foreign auction houses. My CFO hesitated. We're in a position to acquire a smaller competitor in the South. If you're ready, Eleanor, this could be the time to expand our influence. I smiled. I never sought power. From the start, I wanted freedom. One early morning, I sat at the second-story window with black tea, watching the lake mist. Grandma wore her favorite sky blue cardigan to water plants. She stayed longer than planned. One evening, while sorting gemstones in my office, she asked, "Do you know what I'm most proud of?" I shook my head. "Not wealth or career," she said, "but that you stayed true to your values, even when the price was high." I held on to her words for days. I thought of all the times I stayed silent to avoid hurting others, the nights I came home with heavy shoulders, thinking I had to be enough to be noticed. I tried to be useful to be seen. For years, since I'd shown myself, I didn't need others' approval. During an inventory inspection for restoration, I found Grandma's pale lavender stone swan hairpin in that antique box. I'd kept it for years because it started everything, not its value. I placed it in a blue velvet box with a brief note, "You brought light to the unseen girl." My private gallery's first shelf holds that box to remind me my journey wasn't privileged. It began with being forgotten. Soon after, I was invited to speak at a Paris Heritage and Value Conference. For once, I didn't hesitate. I stopped worrying about what others thought or how the stage might shrink my family. I was going under my real name, with the firm I built from scratch, with Grandma's white gold ring, and with the quiet pride of someone who had been ignored yet never forgot who she was. Eleanor's story teaches that leaving family for truth and independence is brave. Though not everyone finds love, everyone can choose not to live in injustice forever. Eleanor's career took time. She found self-love without her family's approval. That's real healing, real freedom. Your thoughts on Eleanor's choice? Was being resolute the only way to be herself? Leave a comment and subscribe for more touching family stories. Thanks for diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.